Hi, and welcome to another episode of Get Out and Explore with John. The origin of today's video actually starts some 90 years ago, as America was trying to crawl out of the Great Depression. In 1933, newly elected President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed into law the New Deal, a series of initiatives which created the CCC among other entities. Thus, we have the beginnings of Camp Michaux. The CCC program provided jobs and training to young men ages 18 to 25. This site in Cumberland County, Pennsylvania, was selected because of the environmental damage it had sustained from the nearby Pine Grove iron furnace. Extensive logging was done in the area to make the charcoal that fueled the iron furnace. The Bunker Hill Farm was one of a few that assisted in support of the iron furnace by growing crops and raising livestock to feed the iron workers. It was established in 1787 and operated until about 1920. The only thing that remains now are the ruins of the Bunker Hill or Hessen barn, which was mostly destroyed by a winter storm in 2016, and the foundations of an old farmhouse. This CCC camp, known as S51, was organized to build roads and install telephone and electric lines in the area. They were also responsible for replanting millions of trees in the area around South Mountain. Then, on December 7, 1941, Japan's unprovoked attack on Pearl Harbor thrust America into World War II. Thousands upon thousands of Americans were sent to Europe and the Pacific to fight the Axis powers. Then soon after, as victories began to mount, there began a need to have more and more POW camps for interrogation of prisoners to gain valuable information that could assist in ending the war quickly. There were hundreds of POW camps established across the U.S., which housed over 425,000 prisoners. In 1943, the Pine Grove Furnace Internment Camp was established, and it is estimated to have housed over 25,000 POWs during its existence. There were two main interrogation sites: Fort Tracy on the west coast near San Francisco for Japanese POWs, and Fort Hunt just outside of Washington, D.C. for German POWs. Soon, Fort Hunt became overcrowded, and the search began for an alternate site. It was then that the Pine Grove Internment Camp came into play as a crucial part of the secret interrogation of German POWs by members of the P.O. Box 1142 agents. Over the 30-year period of its existence, over 7,000 German POWs were interrogated here, though none were physically tortured. When the prisoners arrived, they were segregated into 8 separate categories depending on their rank, their specialty, and whether or not they supported the Nazi regime. After designation, many of them were sent off to different locations around the country until the end of the war. When the war ended, the prisoners were taken to New York City and returned to Germany. After the war ended, the site was repurposed as an interdenominational church camp and operated until 1972, when a fire destroyed one of the main buildings and much infrastructure. The church could not afford to rebuild, so they broke their lease and abandoned the site. Then, after 3 years of not coming up with a viable plan for the site, the state of Pennsylvania decided in 1975 to hold an auction for all materials on the site, and everything was sold with the exception of what we see today. That was a very brief backstory of what brought us here to this location today. I obviously glossed over many things to get us to the reason we are here. Now our story begins. As we leave the parking lot on the east side of Michaux Road, this is where we find the remains of the Bunker Hill Farm. The first ruins that we come across are what was left of the old farmhouse during the CCC and POW camp era. Later, this was turned into the assistant caretaker's home for the church camp. Here's what remains of the guard tower on the east entrance, I believe. Just the foundations, the concrete foundations, and the metal strapping that would have held up the structure above. This is located just adjacent to the remains of the old barn from the homestead, which stood here and was in operation from 1785 until 1920 about. This is all that remains of the barn. Take a look at the signboard here and see what it tells us. It's the Bunker Hill Farm. And that's what remains of it. Not much. The picture here shows what it looked like around 1913. Doesn't look like that today, but it's pretty cool that even a little bit of it still exists. As we leave the farm area, we cross the road and take a short walk down to the main entrance of what was Camp Michaux. Hi everyone. As you can see by the sign behind me, we are in Michaux State Forest, which is in south central Pennsylvania, about 30 minutes northwest of Gettysburg. Today we're going to go into the woods and take a look at some pretty cool history. This area was a POW camp during World War II for German prisoners of war. I was here over the past summer and toured the area, but it was very hard to make out any of the foundations because of the vegetation overgrowth. So I'm hoping today we'll be able to see a little bit more as we take a look at Michaux POW camp. Okay, who knew there was a German POW camp in Pennsylvania? Not me, but let's go check it out. See if we can learn some cool history. As we pass through the main gate and take a short walk down the road, the first area that we come to on the right is what was originally the forestry office camp for the CCC. As the war broke out, this building was transformed into the interrogation building. After the war concluded and the church took over the property, this building became known as Michaux Lodge and was the residence of the weekly camp leader. The next thing that we come to is the POW historical marker, erected sometime around 1946. As it is difficult to see what the marker says, I am inserting a picture that I found online to show you what it looked like when it was new. Okay, directly across from the POW marker is the foundation and the remains of what was the bathhouse for both the POW camp and for the church camp after the war was over. Okay, so this path that we're walking on, I didn't notice it originally, but it is actually a paved road, remains of one of the main roads into the camp. It's covered with debris, but it actually is a paved road coming through. This is not marked on the map, but it looks like there's some foundation blocks for another building here. Not really sure what they are. Definitely another foundation. You can see it in the back there by the tree, and then the piers make the outline of the rest of the building here. There's no dates or anything, any marker here, so I'm not really sure what these are. definitely a building here at some point. Okay, it turns out I did find some information on this area. It actually was the recreation building for the POW camp, and also for the church camp afterwards. The church camp also used this building as a camp store at some point. Okay, here's the fountain at the entrance to the camp. Pretty substantial structure still remaining. I don't know if I could see any kind of date or carving on it. Let's get a little closer. Doesn't look like there's any date on there that I can make out. But there was a pretty nice fountain here in the middle of the camp. Let's back up and get a nice view of that. Also, I noticed that from when I was here back in July, this is a massive tree that has come down. That was not there when I was here previously. That's pretty substantial root system that's pulled up out of the ground here. Okay, here's what remains of the CCC star insignia that they put into the ground here. Mostly still there, but kind of starting to fade away a little bit. Here's an additional picture that shows you what it looked like in its better days. Looks like we're coming to a fairly large clearing here. According to the map, this was the main barracks and mess hall for the German POWs, and also for the church camp after the war. So it's quite a large building, probably 30 feet wide by, I'd say, at least 100 feet long. All that's remaining are these piers and foundations on the front side, and on the back side it looks like there's a continuous footing along the back here. Goes all the way down to the other end here. Here's a picture of what I believe to be the inside of this building when it was still standing. As we walk alongside the foundation for the mess hall, this is what was left of the grease trap from the kitchen area. And here's another identical foundation to the one that we just saw. They're right next to each other. Another barrack building for the POWs. This one, the foundation seems to be a little bit better shape, and you can kind of make it out a little better. Obviously these trees have grown up since the building was there, so that tells you how long it's been since the building was demolished. And here's the foundation along the back side. Some of the intermediate piers here. Okay, the area that we're in now is referenced on the map. The designation is the stairs to nowhere. Definitely looked like some stairs were here at one point, but they have crumbled down, and this is a little tricky to go up and down. Let me see if I can get a better view for you here. That is the stairs to nowhere. Okay, this also was an area where the additional barracks were for the POW camp. After the war, The church camp, though, turned this into a pool in 1954. A pretty large swimming pool. You can kind of make out the edges of the pool, and it goes pretty far back in there. I believe the concrete slab that I'm standing on, there's a building or a room underneath of it. It looks like it's starting to collapse over here. It's probably where they had the pumps for the pool. So we're going to go see if we can take a look. Looks like an entrance on the side. Let's see if we can see what's down below. Here's the entrance to what is left of the space down below. I don't know if I can make it down here. As you probably have heard from all of the walking through the camp, it's very muddy here. It rained pretty good the last few days, and the footing is very treacherous here. Let's see if there's anything we can see down here. Not a whole lot, but there's definitely room for the pumps and maybe storage. Here's a picture of what the pool area looked like during the church camp years. If you do visit, be careful. There are plumbing, sewer pipes, and culverts all over the place. If the vegetation has grown up, it'd be very easy to fall into one of the holes that are all over the place. So just be careful. This next area is the upper dam and water reservoir that was built at the POW camp by German POWs. We can look around here, and I'm told that if we look alongside of the concrete along the reservoir, we can even find some initials that were carved into the concrete by one of the POWs. Here are a few additional examples of carvings done by the German POWs. It looks like we found a little canal that they built to channel the water from the first dam down here to this area, which they converted into a nice big swimming area for the church camp. Quite a large area, filled in with a lot of debris and trees and stuff right now, but pretty large area. You can also make out right here one of the ladders that they had to get in and out of the water. I don't know how deep this thing was originally. You could step down off of it right now, but maybe at one point it was deep enough that you needed a ladder to get in and out. Pretty cool though. Down here, lower swimming pool area. This is where they had a pump house for all of their water needs, and Here's the foundation here. Actually, the foundation is in decent shape. Here's a little, here's a picture on the message board of what it actually looked like. It was pretty big. Wow. People were diving board and everything, so people actually came here and really enjoyed themselves. Take a look down here. Yeah, not much left of it nowadays, but quite a large space. Again, here are the remains of the pump house, so next to the pool area. You need a substantial pump to filter all the water in and out of that pool. It's huge. Here's another view from below of what remains of the lower dam. This is what remains of the mess hall. Pretty substantial foundation here. This is a quite interesting type of construction, a concrete slab held up by wooden piers. I don't know that I've ever seen that before. Here's another one of those holes that I was telling you about to be careful. You could fall in there and break a leg real easy. Looks like there's some more stuff back here. It's not even on the map. Let's take a look. Didn't see this before. Yeah, this was all overgrown when I was here previously. Not even sure what this is, but there's another building here. Again, if anybody has any idea what any of this stuff is, please comment down below so that we can all learn together. There's the other end of the mess hall. Maybe this was part of the kitchen area. The mess hall was right over there. Looks like a big piece of metal that's laying there, possibly from the kitchen. We'll say the kitchen for now. This is a view of what's left of the main incinerator building that sits across the road from the main mess hall. This clearing here is just down from the mess hall. This was the camp office. You can see some steel columns sticking up out of the ground. They must have supported the structure up above. Yep, you can see them at various locations around the perimeter here. They do have these poles with numbers on them that correspond to the map that you can pick up in the parking lot to kind of guide you around. So that's very helpful in trying to determine what you're looking at. Well, that concludes our tour of Camp Michaux. There were some pretty cool things to see here, and an interesting history about what happened here during World War II that probably most of the people watching don't even know about. But hopefully, if you made it this far in the video, you enjoyed what you saw. If you did, you can always give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing. And who knows where we're going to go in the next video, but hopefully you'll be there and we'll get to do something fun, because you never know what you're going to do or see when you get out and explore with John.